Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever episode of Keeping It Legit. Yes, this is the first episode, guys, so thank you for tuning in and listening. I really appreciate you guys for listening, and your support is very highly appreciated. I love you guys. Thank you, and please do continue to show your love and continue to support the movement. Now, you may be wondering why I've started up a podcast. The reason why I want to create a podcast and I've entitled it Keeping It Legit is really around wanting to educate young people of our communities, young Black people of our communities, to aid them in making better decisions. We have a free will, and we need to exercise our free will to make the right choices. In life, you've got choices, right or wrong. Choices are available to us. And, I believe that our communities need more role models and more people to come forward to share their wisdom and pass that wisdom on to the young people. When I'm a Christian. Yeah, I said it proud. I believe in God. I believe Jesus died for me. I believe I am saved. And in the Bible that we use, the good book, I call it, it says in Proverbs 22, verse 6, that, train up the child in a way he should go, and when he is old, he won't depart from it. That speaks volumes. That's powerful. It's a powerful statement. And as I look at my life and what I've been through and how I was brought up and how I was trained by my parents, I see that scripture becomes ever more true and ever more relevant. I think it's important that our communities are educated, our young people in our communities are educated properly. Unfortunately, there's so many different voices out there, all saying so many different things, and it's important that our young people are able to almost dissect which information is right and which information is false. And be able to make better decisions for themselves, so they don't have to make some of the mistakes that others may have made. There's nothing new under the sun. I truly believe that. And I truly believe that wisdom is passed down to educate, to edify, and to help people to make better choices and to avoid some of the repercussions that come with making the wrong choice, if that sort of makes sense. So yeah, that's the aim of this podcast. So thank you guys for joining me. If you know of any young people that could benefit from hearing the truth and hearing, wisdom and making better choices, please share it onto them. And guys, young people, thank you for joining. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and share with people that you know. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to who I am. My name is Xavier Theodore Techiafo. Wait, hold on, I forgot Nanajimai. That's my name of my African heritage. I come from Ghana. I'm raised in a Ghanaian household. I'm first generation diaspora here. So my parents, they migrated here to the UK, and I was the firstborn. So, the pressure was on me to sort of go out there and set the right example for those who are following after me. And, I made a lot of mistakes. I did. I made a lot of wrong choices, but at the same time, there were some right choices that I also made. And I'm just grateful that, and trusting God that, the mistakes that I made, my siblings don't make those same mistakes. And I see in many aspects that was true. Xavier Theodore means, so Xavier in Latin means a new house. Theodore means God's gift. And Nana Ajimai, so Nana's like a title that you give to maybe someone of royalty. So it could be a king, could be a queen. Ajimai means savior of people. And, I only recently discovered this. And I'm a very, those of you who know me know I'm a very deep guy. I'm a very, a guy who likes to think about things. They call me the conspiracy theorist, because I'm always trying to think about things and trying to evaluate things and try to reason. And, I believe, great, philosophers were like that. So I don't look at it as a negative thing. Some people might be like, "Oh, Xavier, you think too deep." But I think we need to do more thinking. We need to do more thinking, and think before we act. Thinking before you act. Not thinking too much where you get dissuaded, but thinking enough that you can make the right choice based on the information that is available to you. And that's what I want to do for you young guys, young girls as well, who are you're growing up, you're discovering who you are and learning about who you are and wanting to become the person that you're destined to be. I believe God has a purpose and plan for everybody and has a pathway for everybody. And so I want to be that tool that God uses to help you guys to make a better choice and become that person that you're destined to be. So with that being said, like I mentioned, I came from a Ghanaian household. I went to secondary school, Kingsdale School. Kingsdale Foundation School at the time. All of you guys know Kingsdale in those days is not what it is today. Basically, in today's world, it's a bit of a madness. It's a very good school, but when I went Kingsdale, it was a mad school. There's a lot of stabbings, a lot of gang violence, and all that kind of stuff. And I managed to come through. I managed to come through it. I did mix up with the wrong people and learnt some harsh lessons. But I just thank God that I had some sound people around me in the midst of all the noise and the bad crowd that I had, that allowed me to sort of pull out of gang violence and pull out of criminal activity as soon as possible. Then went on to college, where I then first got exposed to employment. I worked at a record label, Defenders ENT LOS. I worked at a record label for a couple of years doing digital marketing and street campaigns for songs such as "Do You Mind" by Kyla, "The Bongo Jam" by Crazy Cousins, MC Versatile's track, Funky House track. It's time to get funky, it's time to get funky. Yeah, so I've got had some experience then moved on to go to university. I finished college quite early. I went to live in Portsmouth for about 9 months with my cousin David. Went into my second form of employment. I learnt a lot there. And then went to the University of Kent. Yep, shout out to my UKC people. Went to the University of Kent, where I studied business with marketing. And then, I got into some financial hardship, which then made me come back down to the UK to finish my final year of university at the University of Greenwich, where I got a 2-1 upper second class honours after a lot of hardship that I went through, a lot of financial struggles that I went through. Managed to pull through with a good university grade. So I'm grateful to God for my journey and what I've learned, and I want to share some of the wisdom that I've learned in my career with you guys, and hopefully get some more people as well to sort of join and share their wisdom with you as well. Cool. So today's topic is going to be an interesting one. We're going to talk about the Black Lives Matter topic. We're going to do that. We're going to do it. Yes, we are going to do it. We're going to talk about it. It's something that needs to be talked about. It all sort of sparked off when we saw George Floyd, who was murdered by a police officer, a group of police officers who decided to kneel on his neck till he lost his life. And that sparked outrage across the whole world. The whole world is outraged by what happened. We've seen lots of protests. We've seen a lot of violence and riots taking place. We've seen a lot of backlash, a lot of campaigns surface off the back of that. And, as I've been thinking there, it's really allowed me to sort of reflect on my experience as a black person, and what I've kind of gone through, and how systematic racism is oppressing black people. And it's very real. It's a very real topic. I am a victim of it as well. And, when everything was sort of happening, I was really, 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 really hesitant to speak up about it. Not hesitant in the sense I didn't want to. It was just I didn't know how. I didn't know how to voice my hurt. I didn't know how to voice my anger. I didn't know how to voice my pain in a way that was respectable, that will allow me to be heard, that allow me not to look like a fool and not to exude violence and anger and outrage. Because I made that mistake many years ago, and I got into that state, and it led me down a dark path. I ended up, unfortunately, being incarcerated for rioting and protesting. And a lot of people don't really know the story, but at the time it did end up in the press. And I thank God that I came through that situation. I am the man that I am today. And I've now learned that there's a way to communicate things. So having said that, I'm a man who's loved music. I used to do music. I used to rap. I used to produce. I still produce and I still write songs. But I was very much out there. I used to be in a group called the Clip Stars, where I used to rap. Some of you guys know. And so music has always been a passion of mine when I was young. I loved music. You were always listen to grime, a lot of clashes, a lot of battles. If you guys know all of the decks, all of the mics, all those little clashes, Wiley, Lethal B, all these man, going at it, like it was a part of me, and I used to clash in school with a lot of my friends, and we used to write bars, write music, and put together stuff. So that was my way. That was sort of my escape from many harsh realities. And so that's where you see me doing the little freestyle on my Instagram page. I put a little freestyle together and did a song with a good friend of mine. It's pretty much my cousin, Pace Clipstar, where we sort of talk about what's happening in the world and things that's happening. We'll put that out there for you guys to sort of see soon. And you can sort of see that I'm frustrated. I'm stressed out. I'm praying to God that things change. I've been subjected to racism very recently, where I was being treated different because I wasn't exactly I was of a different skin color. My background is in early careers, so I work a lot with employers. I help them to understand how to work with apprentices, graduates, and interns. I help them to advertise their opportunities and sort of help them to know how to deal with young people as well. Sort of the guidelines around mentoring, training, and developing young people was a big part of what I did at QA Limited, QA apprenticeships. And so in that sort of environment, you can see that Black people are a minority. When I used to go to some of the events, the networking events, and some of the events that were put on, I was probably the one of two Black people in the midst of 30, 40 people. And I get along with everyone. I get along with everybody. I can mingle with, I've learned over my years in sales. I've got about 12 years in sales and marketing. I've learned how to speak and deal with everybody from every background of all different levels. You can be a chief executive of a business. You could be a front level staff, front of house staff. I know how to get along with you and build a rapport with you. And so it never really struck me until recently how disadvantaged Black people are. We're not represented enough. Organizations are giving the talk, but they're not actually walking the walk. We don't have a lot of Black HR advisors, a lot of Black HR executives or HR managers or directors. We don't have a lot of that. So, things are systematically designed in a way to keep people of Black, African, minority ethnics under a certain subjection, and it's not fair. And I was just the other day, I was in the shower. I was sort of, so when I've got this thing where when I'm in the shower, I'm always talking to God. So I'm bathing, either if I'm worshiping or I'm praying or whatever, I'm having some sort of communication with God. And that's where he sort of speaks to me sometimes and kind of speaks into drops things into my spirit. And it was the other day that I was pondering on everything that was sort of happening, and it just came into my spirit. I don't know why it came into my spirit, and God sort of kind of dropped to my spirit saying, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And I was thinking, like, okay, God, what are you trying to say here? It's just like, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Now that line, that statement is found in John 8:34. That's in the Bible. For those of you who don't really read the Bible, maybe get one, and have a read here and there. But it's in John 8:31. It says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." So I was just like quite inquisitive. I said, God, what do you mean by this? Why is it coming into my spirit? So it sort of took me back to. So he sort of took me back to the 10 Commandments. Now, when we look at the 10 Commandments, a lot of us know what the 10 Commandments are. Some of us don't. But the 10 Commandments have, when you look at them all, if you get a chance, have a read. The 10 Commandments sort of paint this picture of how we should live as people, as humans on this earth, how we should live. And a lot of those things that are there are pointing towards love, to us living in love with people, to love our neighbors, to love our God, to love God first and foremost, and that way we can love others. Not to be jealous, not to bear false witness against somebody else, and not to covet somebody else's wife, and all these kind of things that can stir up hatred and evil. It's telling us not to do, so that way love can reign in the situation. I was just like, wow, okay, so where are you going with this, And it sort of took me back to Genesis, the beginning of Earth. Now, some people have different, theories of how the Earth came to existence, different beliefs and different ideologies. But one thing that I've noticed in many Abrahamic faiths, so Abrahamic faiths are, you got Christianity, you have Islam, and you have Judaism, Abrahamic faiths. And they talk, and even some of the faiths that are not Abrahamic, you've got Hinduism and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the message there is talking about love. There's always this element of love and peace. So said, okay, well, let's go back to the beginning of time. Like I said, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to go to the beginning. And God just kind of said, look in the beginning and how things started, how I originally created things. And when you look at Genesis 1:26, it says, well, I'll read it for you, actually. I'll read it so I don't sort of paraphrase anything. It says, "Then God said, let us make man in our own image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish in the sea, over the birds in the air, and over the cattle all over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created, 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And it struck me. I was just like, okay, so we are created in the image of God. Now, for you guys who know and understand the Bible and what, the picture of who God is, God is a spirit. We're spirit beings. So you have your spirit, you have your soul, you have your flesh, right? And if we are all created in the image of God, and the first man that we believe was created was Adam and Eve, and then from Adam, Eve came forth, So if the earth started with one man and his wife, that means we all come from that one man and his wife. Now, you guys all have a mum and you have a dad, right? You have your mother, you have your father. So if you have your mother and your father, and you're born, you are their offspring. You come from that person. You're from that lineage. You're from that household. You're from that name. Guess what? They have another child. That's your brother, right? Or your sister. You know, you have your child, right? So that's their grandchild, your son or daughter. And your brother or your sister has a son and a daughter, and that's your nieces, your nephews, right? You're all related, right? So if we all came from one person, and that's how the earth sort of populated and, subdued, then surely we must all be one people. That's what we profess, that we are created in the image of God, right? We're Christians. This is what we believe, right? This is the truth, right? So we're all one people. And then he kind of sort of took me over to how sin sort of entered into the world and what happened with, the snake, the serpent, the devil coming to entice Eve. And, Eve then took of the fruit that, God gives the command that, hey, look, don't eat from this tree, because this tree will surely lead you to death. What comes with this tree will be death. Don't eat from it. He tells Adam that. Adam, tells his wife that. And the snake comes, the serpent comes, and the devil comes into the situation and twists the truth, and they fall into subject. They basically commit sin, and sin enters into the whole world, right? So, as sin enters into the world, mankind's nature becomes flawed, just naturally evil and wicked. Yeah? It becomes naturally evil and wicked. Mankind just thinks evil, has an evil nature now. They don't have that holy nature no more that God initially intended and created for mankind. And we then see later, when Noah comes into the picture, and, the flood happens, and God uses Noah to repopulate the earth. He's the only one who survives. Him and his family are the only ones who survive, with a few animals. They're the only ones who survive, right? We all know that story. If you want to read it, go and check out the Bible and read for yourself. We're not going to go into it today. Nobody got time for that. I'm trying to get a message across to you guys. So we see that happening. And it just made me think, wait, hold on. So if the earth practically restarted. And you can do your research. You can do all the research you want to do. Look at those who, go to the historians, the archaeologists. They all tell you these are genuine events that happened. There's evidence of these things happening. The world was wiped out by a flood, and a few humans remained, and everything restarted. Now, if that happens, surely, as the world has commenced and has resumed from that point, it happens again. It restarts. We are coming from one person, Noah, who also comes from Adam. So we are all one people. No matter what skin color you are, there's no such thing as race. When we have race, the only race we should really be knowing about is the human race. It's not color. Race isn't color. It isn't. We've been confused by society, and we're confused by the media. We're confused by some corporate idiot who has some mad agenda to sort of confuse people and divide people by telling you your race is white, black, Asian, whatever. We are one race. We are the human race. We are all one people. Distant relatives. So when we go back to the Ten Commandments, and we see that God is pointing us to calling us to walk in love with one another, it makes sense. Because really and truly, you are loving your neighbor who is actually you. We are all related. We are. Some of you are going to think, oh, this guy's crazy. What is he talking about? What does he mean? We're not all related and whatever. But when you study and know the truth sets you free. Now, we then look at, the nature of man since the fall. The fall, man is now inherently evil, born in sin, inherently evil with an evil nature. Now, it talks about in Galatians, if you pick up the Bible, look in Galatians 5:19 to 21, it talks about the nature of mankind, man's flesh, where he's thinking with his flesh and just thinking on his own accord, naturally on his own accord without any influence. It says here, so I'll read it so I don't paraphrase. It says, now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I also told you in the past time, that those who practice such will not inherit the kingdom of God. Now, I'm not here to condemn anybody, but this is what the good book says. That comes with living that life intentionally, continuously living that kind of lifestyle, right? Now, when we look in history, we see how people who were working in the flesh and following those sort of precepts, that sort of lifestyle, what it has done. When we look at, slavery really was, hatred, really was outbursts of wrath when they were beating the slave people. Selfish ambitions, they were going there for selfish gains and beating people and making them work for selfish ambitions. Killing, lynching them, murders, that's murder, isn't it? Lynching them is murder. All these sort of things were taking place at the time and even are taking place at this moment. And that's where racism sort of comes from, isn't it? It's all coming from that, where that division is there. Those evil things are there. We're not walking in love to one another, where they're not walking in love to us as black people. And these kind of things are rooted in the hearts of many people, So when we see these things happening, we can see the root and we see where it's going. And that's the problem we have today. That's the problem we have with systematic racism. They're not walking in love. We, as black people, are not walking in love. I believe that when, love comes into a situation, it overcomes all things. When you look at walking in love, it almost kind of eliminates the presence of evil. As I mentioned, in the Bible, God calls us to sort of love one another and to, the whole message around, the 10 Commandments. When you look at the Bible as a whole, the whole sacrifice and what Jesus done, like the message is love. God's just trying to get us to understand what love is. And I truly believe that this world at this present time needs love. It needs more love. We are all getting offended by anything because we're not walking in love. We're not walking in forgiveness. And God wants us to love, and wants to teach us the way of love in its true form, so that love can conquer in every situation and the challenges that we face today. So I just want to kind of get you guys to look into, so Galatians 5:22, if you guys can open it up and read, it says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering. So long-suffering is just like putting up with something for a long time, looking past the flaw and kind of just, make an excuse for the person if they're, treating you in a certain way, and kind of just bearing with that thing, putting up with them. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It says, against such there is no law. And those who are Christ's have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. Now, if we are all one people, right, and we're walking in this way of love and in this common understanding that we are one people, we are one race, doesn't matter what skin color you are, you see that all those different things are all components and byproducts of love. So if you truly want to impact our communities and change the narrative and change the world eventually, then we really, really need to know what love is in its true form, and live a life of love towards every and anyone in order for things to change. Now, another element of love is forgiveness. So I used to struggle with forgiving people. I used to be number one grudge holder. You do something wrong to me, I'm holding that grudge. I'm holding it like my life depended on it. Like a rugby ball or NFL ball. I'm holding on to that bad boy. I ain't forgiving you for nothing, yeah? When I see you, we ain't talking. I'm going to avoid you. When someone comes to ask me about that person, I don't want to want to know about that person, bruv. Flip that person, flip that guy, flip that girl. I'm not trying to hear it. Unforgiveness used to take root in my heart. And that used to breed bitterness. And when that root of bitterness sinks into your heart, it's very hard to uproot. And it doesn't produce anything positive at all. You find yourself becoming like, I don't know, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it when you've had that kind of bitterness inside you. It feels like it's eating you up every time. It's eating you up to a point, like in some circumstances, you're feeling sick about something, like something's not right with your body. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So I think for us as a people, there's an element of forgiveness that we need to have towards those who have oppressed us. We need to forgive. We need to forgive ourselves. We need to forgive ourselves. You know, there's been so much, I don't want to even call it black on black violence, but that's what it is. There's been so much violence against one another in our communities, that so much hatred, so much anger. Like we look in our social medias, we look at society, our culture is generally about trampling on one another. You know, we have gossip TV shows now where the sole intention is to brush people or disgrace people or bring people down for entertainment. It's entertainment. We laugh, we look at comments in the comment sections, people are commenting and they're slaying people. Some of them are just really dragging people down. You guys need to understand the power of your words, man. Some of the stuff that you're saying, you're speaking some mad stuff into people's lives. I'm going to do a topic about that, about the power of the tongue. I'm going to do a topic about that because it's so real. And it will make you think about how you treat and what you say to people and about yourself. It's a deep, deep topic. And so we need to understand the way we are. And the way we are as a people needs to change. Because then we will start to gain the respect of those who aren't from our communities, who are not accustomed to our community, who are raised in a different community, in a different society, and of a different skin color from us. And when we then change that narrative, we can then command the respect, because we won't have to command it. It will naturally just come to us. I don't know if you guys noticed that, some people haven't actually been through racism. Some black people or ethnic minorities haven't experienced racism. And you know why that is? It's because the way they live their life. I have white friends. I have many white friends. I have many Asian friends. I have many Latino friends. I have many Chinese friends. And they love me. I'm not bragging. Generally, they love me, man. Those who are my friends, they are really, really there for me. They've helped me in situations. I've helped them. I've been a blessing to them. And we get along. We have banter. We have jokes. We get on so well. And, I'm sure if I ask each and every one of them why they do so, is because they will probably say that it's because I'm different. They see me as different to the stereotype that the media is pushing into their faces. You have to understand that there is an agenda. There is an agenda out there to paint people in certain lights. When you look at the news, the media, society, there is agendas to paint people into a certain way for their gain, so they can gain. It's greed, it's selfish ambitions. That's what it is. So we as a community of people coming from Africa, we need to understand that we need to change the narrative. You know, our beginnings came from tribalism. You know, our beginnings came from tribalism. It's there in history. And that's something that we need to understand is the case. We came from tribalism. And so when they see us, they see our roots. When you see white people, you see their roots, or their roots are in slavery. Yes, Africa, we have a root of tribalism. And we need to, we thank God that even in the midst of that evil, he still gave us the truth of who Christ is and who he is and the message of love so that we can be free. And that's what was kind of bringing me back to that whole conversation. And God was just like, look, the truth will set you free. When you know the truth, it sets you free. It truly does. So when we know the truth of where we're coming from and the truth of what's actually happening and the truth of what God is calling us to do and be, we can truly break those chains, change those narratives. I believe us as a community, we need to do more in terms of supporting fellow black people, fellow black businesses. I'm not preaching that we should stop working with white people and, you know, Asian people and Latin American and people from different ethnic backgrounds. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if you can choose to buy something from somebody who's black, then do so. Don't say you're not going to spend your pound with them, because at the end of the day, those people who are outrightly racist, who have determined in their lives to be racist, you're feeding your money to them. So why don't we raise our communities? Why don't we build up our communities in love? So then that way others they're like, I've got some amazing white friends who love our community. They love our culture. They love it and they want to be a part of it. And that way, when they're joining our communities, they can see that community as a loving community. A community that spreads peace, joy, happiness, all those things that come with love, those byproducts with love, you know? Now, not to keep it too biblical, when we look at, you know, great leaders like Martin Luther King, great man, did a lot of things for black people and for society as a whole, and taught a lot on very different, many aspects of being an upright person. He was a Christian minister, as we know. He had his flaws, but the messages that he was sending were always consistent. Now, I've got a few sayings from Dr. King. You know, he says, you know, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Wow. So many people were protesting and peacefully protesting and going out and speaking, you know, all these different statements and stuff. We're using Dr. King as you know, the face of things, and he's calling us to love. He was preaching the message of love. It's there. You see it there in the statement. Another thing he says was, we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. Wow. And he also goes on to say, there is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. Wow. That's insane, right? And it's so consistent with the message of the Bible, which he proclaims as the inspiration for the messages he was preaching and the messages he was delivering and the things he was saying. So, you know, it just leads me back to what God was saying about, you know, the truth will set you free. And he kind of showed me all these different aspects and things that I needed to know. And it kind of prompted me to understand who I am as a believer of the good book. As all of us are believers, those who are as believers, we have a duty, which is to speak the truth so that the truth will set us all free. And I'm not here to push anyone and force anyone to Christianity. I'm just here to give you a message. This message today in this first episode is love and forgiveness. We're in a time where everybody is so offended. Everybody is so angry. Everyone is so bitter. Everyone is so disturbed and hateful and full of rage that we need to change. Things will go down a dark spiral if we don't change. Our communities need to change. We need to learn to forgive and love one another. We need to change the narrative. And we only can do that with love and forgiveness. So, me personally, as I said in my post that I put out the other day, I'm choosing to love and to forgive. I'm choosing to forgive those who oppressed my ancestors, those who oppressed me, those who oppressed my fellow brothers and sisters. Because, we are all brothers and sisters. Whether distant, close, or whatever, we are all one people. And I'm going to choose to love them just the same. I'm choosing to, love those who are of my skin color, who are of my ethnic background. I'm choosing to love them and to put aside all the evil seeds that those who were oppressing were trying to sow into our communities. I'm choosing to uproot that root of bitterness. I'm choosing to uproot that seed of division, that whole element of divide and conquer. I'm choosing to uproot that from my heart. So that way I can love people who are of the same skin color as me and those who aren't of the same skin color as me. I'm choosing to love and put that all aside, I'm choosing to love all humans because we are one race. That is the only race, the human race. We are all one race. So my challenge to you is, will you do the same? Will you choose to put aside all of the hurt and frustration that has been caused and choose to walk in love and forgiveness? Indeed, Black lives matter, but in the same breath, indeed, all lives matter. So for all those who are not of the black skin color and have come to support us, we thank you. We thank you so much for seeing past the seeds that the devil and the enemy has tried to plant in all of our hearts. We thank you for looking at us the same and not looking at the color of our skin, and for loving us all the same. We thank you for not treating us how the racists have trained many to treat us. And we thank you for uniting with us to fight the good fight. And so let's all unite and fight the good fight of faith and rise against racism, discrimination, and let love reign in our hearts. That's my message to you guys today on this first episode. I just hope that that's been a blessing to you and has brought some sort of comfort and a way to sort of practically heal from all the hurt and the pain and the frustration that has affected us over the last few weeks. Now, we've got an amazing lineup and an amazing schedule that I'm hoping for all you young people is going to help you to live a better life. I want you guys to make the right choices, and I'm rooting for you guys because I believe you guys are going to be the kings and queens of tomorrow. You are going to be the future leaders. When I'm on my pension, I'm going to be, living under you guys, governments and times and all that kind of stuff. So I want to ensure that my future for my kids and my family and my heritage and for everybody is secured by doing my bit to help you guys make the right choices. So you guys stay tuned. We've got amazing people that we're going to have speaking on the podcast. We're going to have some amazing discussions about all topics. It's not just going to be too heavily bombarding around, career and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about, not just education. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about, friendships and everything that's affecting you young guys in this day and age. So you guys stay tuned. Please do share and watch out for the next episode of Keeping It Legit. Deuces.